Okay, I can officially call this meeting to order this evening, and I need to pull up the agenda again. But we will, let's see. Sorry, I lost the agenda. We may have to start this recording again. Okay, I was kind of kidding, but thank you. Okay. So announcements. Nina, that's over to you for the Board of Park Commissioner seat. Nina?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. So I did let everyone know over email, but also wanted to reiterate here that Philip Simon did resign his seat on this board. That was our Board of Park Commissioners seat. That does not change our quorum right now. However, Philip was our vice chair, so we will need to fill that seat again. I did talk to our law department, and they do recommend doing that sooner rather than later. So if we feel like that is in order today, we can take care of that this evening after public comment. And that's, I did have one other announcement to add that I did not have on here. My apologies. And we had discussed this before, but the W Young Professionals group has that board placement program this month. And so I did sign us up for that as we had talked about. If anyone is available Thursday, the 27th, that is from 5:30 to 7. Someone can feel free to join me, but I will be there representing the group to get some people hopefully interested in participating in some of our committees. And so I will make sure to send out information on that after our meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay, sounds good, Nina. Thank you. And kind of ahead of this, is there anyone who is interested in the vice chair position or would like to volunteer for it, so we know going into the after public comment if we should go ahead with that for today or not? I might have to make some calls to recruit someone. Okay, well, we'll table that for today then. So next on our agenda is approval of minutes. We've got both August and September to approve this evening. Nina, am I allowed to do both at the same time?
I would do those separately just to be safe.
Okay. All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the August meeting minutes, either now or in the past?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. Can I get a motion on the floor to approve the minutes for August?
So moved.
And a second?
Aye.
Great. Sounds good. All those in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved from August. Same thing with September. Can I get a motion to approve September's minutes?
This is Tammy. I'll make that motion.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tammy. A second?
I second the motion. Jennifer.
Sounds good, Jen. And so all those in favor say aye.
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 All those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. The September meeting minutes have been approved. All right, so now we will officially go back to we will go to public comment. Kent, back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the way what it got down to with solar on your own home is to embark on a test. It's not a very difficult test. Even I passed it, but you must be familiar with National Electric Code, the current, I think it's 2020 NEC code book, where you can find these necessary answers to the questions that will appear on that homeowner's exam. That helps. And it also helps with liability. Who pays if solar panels blow off your roof and you did a self-install, that's on the homeowner. But who pays and who is liable for the electrical work that was conducted on that site? And that's where the homeowner's exam can help you defer costs for hiring an electrician to do a great deal of work. To me, it's not even a very long period of time that one would have to have an electrician on site. Given that you have everything planned out and so know where the routing goes. His term was, who pulls wire? When you pull wire, things can go wrong. And of course, working inside the breaker panel of a home. Now, this is just residential. And it does exclude emergency or temporary solar generation for times of shutoffs, at times of storms, aftermaths of storms, necessary needs. So, Holger, did you concur with that? You were there, and Jennifer was there too.
Right. So, yeah, I think Ken summarized a lot of the discussions that happened there, but to add to it a little bit, homeowners can install their own solar. There's no doubt about that as a matter of fact, but are they truly allowed to according to Sedgwick County regulations? And the answer is, at best, it's very muddy. The process is that Ken just outlined is not what had been communicated to me before this meeting that Kent and Jennifer and I and Carla attended. And what was said at that meeting is a little bit in conflict with what I received by email from MABCD, and getting in touch with the right person by email itself was a process that was way too complicated. The website doesn't really provide the information in an easily accessible way. You have to kind of dig around and guess, and there's a permit portal that then ultimately turns out to not be used for solar permits, and you are supposed to send PDF documents back and forth. And then you have to have engineering drawings, at least that's what I've been told before this meeting, where then, oh, if you do a homeowner's exam, you can do some of it yourself, was the statement. So there is considerable difficulty in navigating that process, and we also know anecdotally that it seems to be quite a bit simpler in other counties. And so there, you know, on the one hand, having oversight and having structures approved that then also hold up to the elements and encourage safe working practices during installation or house building or solar panel installation. I appreciate all that, but nonetheless, the process seems to, you know, just be full of unnecessary obstacles.
Can I ask a question of Kent? In the informal conversation before we started recording this meeting, you had said something about you need a 40-foot setback in order to install solar equipment. I mean, in the neighborhood I live in Delano, which is an old inner core neighborhood, the lots are only 50 feet wide. So is this a state statute, and is the intention to make sure that you can only have solar if you live on a gigantic lot?
Good question. The city or county commission made this rule years ago. What, about 3-4 years ago? And it was in light of the wind turbines being installed in Sedgwick County, now Reno County, now Harvey County, no wind turbines, and no wind turbines whatsoever, not even small ones, can be installed in Sedgwick County.
Yeah,
I didn't understand it that way. With the small
Well,
ones.
that's what he told us personally, the inspector, once upon a time.
I think that is so. I seem to recall hearing as much. Where I think they basically threw the baby out with the bathwater, but
Yeah,
nobody asked me at the time.
yeah. The 40-foot setback is, to me, unreasonable. I agree. Ground mount solar panels should not have all of this space around them. And I have seen variations on that here in Wichita.
So
Location.
has anybody at this meeting you all were at, did anybody discuss changes to state statute or county regulations or whatever as appropriate to try and simplify this process? Or was everybody just looking at the technical construction aspects and not talking about the political constraints?
We didn't really get there in that regard. We were just trying to find out the codes and what the regulations are. The only thing is, one of our friends came in and asked a question, which now I'm worried that you will definitely, if you get an electrician, they'll have to be NASAP certified, which is basically, they have to have their, not just their electrician's license, but their
Solar.
So I got a feeling they're going to change that code to that. There should be quite a few people coming out of the school. I can't think of the place. It's on 13th Street, the electrical school, because they do train in that area. And that's where I told Holger to try to call to see if he could get an electrician for his project.
Yeah, NABCEP stands for North American Board of Certified Energy Professionals. Those are the solar installers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, there aren't any here, and there are no exams here.
This is Tammy, and I serve on the board and I work with Evergy. There are NABCET certified installers in our area. To your point, in Sedgwick County today, it is not required that you have a NABCET certified person, even on staff, to pull a permit for solar. But many of the companies working in our area do have NABCET certified people on staff.
Yeah, and are there any exams being conducted or?
Well, that's a national certification, not a state certification. I think the closest school is Colorado, that they go to. So Johnson County Community College has a solar program. So I think maybe they offer it there as well, but it is a national certification. But I'm not sure where in the state of Kansas you go. Most of it is done online. So you can do that. A lot of times you can become NABCET certified from the comfort of your own home if you choose to. There are online options and online exams for that now.
I think there's a training program that you must work with a NABCEP certified person for a certain amount of time and jobs and so forth as well. Isn't that correct?
I am not familiar with that. The people that I've worked with who are NABCET certified, I'm not sure that was the criteria for them at the time.
Oh, okay. All right.
I would be curious, Kent, in your conversations with them, and we have about 100 different solar companies in Kansas, operating in Kansas and Missouri today. And with regards to Sedgwick County, I work with companies every day who bid themselves out of work in Sedgwick County because they do not want to deal with the permitting and inspection process in Sedgwick County where it comes to solar. And I was at the Renewable Energy Conference when the conversations were being had. In your conversations with them, along with pulling permits, was there any conversation about the inspection process? And
well, so Ken and I understood it completely different, and I don't know if Holger concurs with this or not, but what I understood was that you would have to get a contractor to pull the permits and sign off on the entire project. You could do it yourself, but they would be liable for everything, including the panels themselves that are on the roof. But Ken
Right.
didn't understand it that way. I understand.
My understanding has always been you had to have a master electrician at minimum to pull the permit to install the solar, but I've not looked into it for several years. I mean, I've been doing this for many years, but I haven't, it hasn't been necessary, but that previously, that was my understanding, was that in order to pull the permit within Sedgwick County, you had to have a master's electrician's license to pull the permit to install solar. One of the complaints I hear from solar companies is the inspection process. Most of the companies doing business in our area, they have master electricians. Pulling the permit isn't the issue. It's having someone on site all day for an inspection, because we struggle getting specific times. For example, we can't request an inspection and them tell us it'll be 8 o'clock on Tuesday, the 28th. They tell us, from my understanding, I don't have any experience. What I've heard is they tell us it'll be the 28th. And then a solar company actually has to pay someone to be there all day on the 28th whenever that inspector shows up. That it's hard to nail them down on the inspection process. So I was just curious if that came up in your conversation with them at all, Ken.
I'm going to actually step in because we're kind of running out of time for public comment in general. And I want to give some other folks a chance. Anyone else who wanted to make a public comment today? Okay. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and, for the agenda's sake, since we got started late tonight, that I'm going to go ahead and move on for now. But this is a good discussion to continue offline. But thank you, Ken. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, so let's see. So in terms of our next item on the agenda, we were going to talk potentially about a new vice chair, but it doesn't sound like we have anyone on the call that's wanting to do that tonight without my kind of maybe pulling your arm a little bit. So we'll hold off on that for next week. And then Nina, can you put it back up again? I keep scrolling away from it. Funding workshop. Okay, so our last major item for the rest of the evening. I have some notes from our economic development meeting from last month, but I wanted to ask everyone else first if they'd had a chance to maybe bring up some more ideas or wanted to talk about their ideas about what we might use funding for. Lori?
Well, you know I do.
Yep.
We actually have met and put together a document about a couple of proposals for the Waste and Recycling Committee. They are on the list already as mulching blades in education and a city-owned compost. We've got more detail to that proposal. We've got a mulching blade distribution plan kind of put together, which also has to include an education campaign. It has to. The blades are very cheap, $30 a piece. We could start with 100 and maybe decide to do a certain piece of the city to start with, those that may not be able to afford to buy them on their own. The idea behind this is so that nobody bags. So these are the people who can afford them to buy them on their own. So, but the only way to do the education is to have something like this on it. That is the one piece of it. The other piece we worked on quite a bit was how to do a compost in the city that would perhaps be free to drop off to initially. We would need to find out if there is space already available that belongs to the city, so it doesn't cost anything. We've got the, oh gosh, I should have bolded that or something. The zoning that we need, that was quite a discussion, it sounds like, for to put in a mulching or a compost site. The city zoning people didn't really have any idea of where to put it. So there will be some negotiations once that gets started. They said it requires zoning of general industrial with a conditional use permit for basic industry. Plus, there's going to have to be a lot more discussion afterwards. And this all came from the city, from the planning department. So we've got that as part of what we want to do. We also would like to either bring this as a site that people could bring to maybe on the weekends to start, so that it wouldn't take, because most people are not going to be able to turn in their leaves and grass during the week. Provided that, I mean, unless we have like lawn care people who decide that they want to contribute, then we might need to do it certain times during the week, but that might be manageable once we have those dates set. It would also be possible to find a vendor to either collect all of this at a central site or to actually go and pick them up from people who make reservations to do so, and then either take them to a city compost if we have that established, or take them to whatever place that they would use to compost. There's a couple of different options for that. There's a lot more details, but I know that Catherine has a couple questions or observations. So this took us a long time to put together, Catherine. Don't beat us up.
Okay. I won't beat you up, but I have been thinking about our waste disposal here in Wichita for a while, and one of the things that and I think it should include yard waste collection that is yard waste and kitchen scrap collection that is in a separate vehicle or truck that goes around and collects it every week and takes it to a composting site. And I was thinking that it might be ideal to put the compost site next to or in proximity to our water treatment plant, because then we could take the poop from the water treatment plant and add really good nutrients to the composting mix that would create a nice hot compost.
No, I understand. And that was one of the sites that we had talked about, was using the water treatment once they get moved. It's not going to happen yet, probably, but they do have a lot of space down there that will be kept to use as on an emergency basis in case there's some sort of failure for the new water treatment plant. But yeah, that I was thinking along those lines too, is to use that space. One of the things that we were talking about was yard waste, rather than including all the other stuff. Yard waste would be, now down there, maybe it wouldn't matter if nobody lives by there. And unfortunately people do. There'd be truck traffic that would be disturbing, and that was something we talked about. And if we include food waste, there will be a lot more vermin and bugs there than there would be without. And adding poop, I don't know. I think that they already have a market for that, for their compost that they do. Yeah, I think it's farmers. I think it's nearby farmers that take that for fertilizer. So I'm not sure that that would be available to us either, but I do know that they do that. That's sludge is what they call it.
Sludge, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a nice term for it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice facility on there, and I'm not even sure they've started building the new one yet.
The
But
new water treatment, oh yes, it's well under construction.
is it? Okay, good. So when this one is semi-retired, but kept online for emergency use, it's not going to be used often. But there might be.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of water treat, like the water plant as opposed to the sewage plant. Sorry, wrong.
It's stormwater.
Wrong end of the.
Yeah, no, the water treatment, the sewer, yeah.
Yep.
But that one's not being built yet.
The new water treatment plant,
Sewer
not the wastewater treatment plant, but the
Yeah.
water treatment plant is
Right.
well under construction, yeah.
Right, but the wastewater's moving too,
Thing.
if I remember right. I mean, I think that they're getting a new facility as well. I'll have to ask Becky and see what she says, but because she would certainly know, even though she's retired. We are friends actually. So, but that is, that's part of the siting we would have to do is to first find space. And as long as it's under 5 acres, there is no state permit that needs to be taken out. Anybody can do it, but we do have to follow city zoning.
What if
And that's where
I'm on
that
the-
came in.
I'm on the planning commission, I would suggest first, let's just look at the zoning map and see where there's a couple of different, general industrial is different from some of the other industrial zones, but it's all color coded. You can just look and see what's already zoned and bear in mind the possibility, if you find a perfect site that's zoned, say, commercial, but being used as industrial or something like that, you can always, if you want to, go through a rezoning process and see if you can get it changed.
Yeah, that's possible. It would be ideal to not have to go through all that, but
Yep.
that's finding the space that the city already owns.
Yeah.
Not that we
Lori?
have to purchase. That's what we have to do.
I have a quick
Dina.
question about this project. So, Brooks landfill does have a compost side to the
Okay.
facility.
Okay.
So how, would that be something that could suit this need and offer that, maybe use the funding to sort of supplant that and offer it to free or for free for residents to drop off? Or are you looking to do a little bit more than what they offer?
Well, no, I mean, we were just going to build a compost place so that we would have something to take it to. But if there is an existing spot that could take, I mean, what do they call it?
I believe Brooks is just yard waste. I don't believe they take any food scraps, but they do allow drop-offs, and I do believe they sell back compost for a low cost to residents.
So it already exists, which is good, and we don't have to try to deal with all that. If it can, we might need to have drop-off sites though, because that is way the heck out there. And where do they get what they already have from? Is it lawn services that brings it out there?
I believe so, and from construction projects. So anytime they have to clear out anything, landscaping wise, it would go there.
Okay. That's a possibility. It would be whether we could get people to take it all the way out there or not.
It's not that far. I mean, it's kind of, well, maybe I'm thinking of the construction waste site, which is right where Zoo Boulevard curves and becomes 21st Street. It's kind of off to the northeast from that curve, I think, but I might be wrong.
Right. I'm not familiar with the size of it. We might need to go take a tour at some point.
Yeah. A big part of what we need to do though, is to do education. And this is where the mulching blades come in. How you can save yourself from making a trip to go put your stuff in the compost. How you can save your time by not bagging. How you can save on fertilizer, because this is natural fertilizer. There's an entire education piece that has to accompany this.
That'd be
And
through the marketing side of the house, basically.
that will be a big part. Yeah. And this can be the compost side, or this can also be, I mean, the whole mulching blade and compost can all go together kind of, because if you refuse to use a mulching blade, here's what we want you to do with your yard waste. We know at this point that asking the city council to ban yard waste, although all the haulers were favorable to it, is probably not going to happen. I don't know what you think, Nina. Would anybody go for that on the city council? Would we be able to even do that? Because the haulers sounded like they would be all for that. But
I'm not sure.
yeah,
I don't have any knowledge of if they would support or oppose that.
yeah, that might be some education of council to see if they would. But maybe this education program could come out first. And then once we find out that people are doing it, but just not everybody, then we could go ahead and just ban it. And then they would have to do something. And mulching blades would be the way to go, because then it wouldn't cost you anything, because these would be free. So that's the two proposals that we were talking about. There's a lot more detail, and I can send out this document to y'all so you can look at it and see what you think. But that we are looking at to set up a compost. If it already exists, we won't have that expense. But unfortunately, the bulk of what money we would need to use would be the marketing. And I know that's not going to be the best thing for the city council. They don't like that. So including free mulching blades, hopefully will get us past that. And
Yeah.
maybe like Nina was saying, add some money toward allowing people to take their stuff out there for free. I don't know what the cost is to drop off bags right now, but something like that could be part of what we do initially until people got into the habit and then they wanted to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think we can put some level of money towards marketing, but it's got to be kind of around that whole theme of, you know, okay, yes, we're actually doing something like you said that's a program around it. Then we can market it both through non-paid sources and maybe some paid sources. So there's definitely opportunities for that. The one thing I would say, if we're kind of looking at the concept too of the city leading by example, is there an element of that we could add into this as well?
Nina, can you tell us what you found out about the mowing and stuff that happens already?
Sure. I reached out to Parks and Rec, and they gave me a bunch of information about their own landscaping and their mowing contract. So they don't, you know, as a general rule of thumb, use mulching blades a whole lot, just because of the frequency at which they mow. So they mow most places every 3 weeks. And so they have the issue of everything kind of getting clogged. However, they don't remove clippings with their regular mowers, except for specific areas where it's supposed to look, you know, more pristine or something. So most places it's left, you know, where it originated. And in the fall, they will run mulching blades on some of their follow behind mowers to break up leaves. And so it's a little bit of a mix of what their practices are.
I have a proposal, and that is that we ask all of the media in Wichita to contribute pro bono educational spots every, you know, every hour or so.
Those would have to be PSA's, public service announcements.
Public service announcement that would be cute, catchy, and to the point. And
Advertising it too, so have free marketing.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, it's part of their duty. You know, ask them to do it as a public service. And it's important for them to be involved as much as it is everybody else in the world. So.
Yeah, I agree. I remember, of course, I don't watch TV hardly much, but PSAs used to be shown at 3 a.m. So I don't know if they're doing those in normal time anymore now, but we also have to create that PSA for them.
You have to what?
We have to create the PSA for them.
Well, yeah.
Create the video, do the you know, the work to do that. So that might be staff time that would be required for that.
There must be people in this city that are quite capable of producing such a video, and we could put
Easy grab a student from Wichita State University that is trying to get a degree in that field. So this would be more of a practice for them to do it. So you can get students to do that. You have to post it.
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
have to
Students
post it.
who are in the field of composting.
Graphic arts.
Oh, graphic arts,
Okay. They're going to see this as the most boring topic of all mankind.
It's
But-
not boring at all. It
Would be to them. It would be, unless we get somebody out of the green group to help. I mean, it is super boring for most people. But
Lori,
that's why we need that kind of a video. You're right.
Okay, Lori, can I bring up just a point of information?
Sure.
I don't know how many of you might have heard, but as of the beginning of this month, the city of Wichita is down one more residential solid waste hauler.
Yeah.
The
good.
Best Value Services is no longer doing residential. They just stopped.
Yeah.
Mm.
They were the ones that were having so much trouble already.
Oh, they were. Yes.
Yeah, there were articles about them and everything. But yeah, we did know that.
Okay.
So
I actually feel like the fewer entities we have to deal with, the better chance we have of maybe getting something done. It would be nice anyway, if that's how it worked out.
I
Okay,
agree.
that's all I had.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm sad because he did come to our meeting. The owner did come to our meeting with the trash haulers, and he was very quiet, but he seemed like a really nice guy. So I feel bad for him.
I'm sad because they, as far as I know, were the only ones in the city who provided alley service, which is what alleys are for. But now nobody does.
Yeah. So yeah, and but when the committee that I worked with was the Waste and Recycling Committee, and that included Nalini Frazier, who is actually on tonight, and Susan Erlenwine, who is also on tonight. Do either of you two want to add anything to this discussion? Nalini or Susan?
Apparently just watching.
No, Nalini just unmuted, so go for it, girl. Uh-oh.
No, thank you, Lori. No, I don't really have a lot to say. Thank you for working on putting that proposal together and presenting it for us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you two, and Jesse also did a lot of work on that for us. So for everybody putting that together. So what other projects do we have? And I'm also wondering, Susan's microphone doesn't work.
No.
Lori, I also did want to mention
Yes.
that as far as, ads and communicating, we were Odyssey, which I guess is a radio company, they had reached out to us as far as doing free radio ads for
Good.
Anybody in the city or nonprofits. So that's something that they offer on a regular basis. I'm not sure where that landed because there was a whole bunch of interest. So they might have gotten a bit swamped from us. But I can revisit that and see where there's opportunity to put something together in the future. And basically that would entail us or the communications team writing up something, and they have people at Odyssey who will record it professionally. So
We do PSAs that way over the
Yep.
airwaves.
yeah.
Yep. Good.
Oh, good.
Tammy, did you have anything coming out of your committee in the last month?
We did not from a project perspective. We did, and I think Nina correct, it was in the last month that we met and discussed, shared information on a commercial energy efficiency building registration process that Kansas City uses, that Evergy supports, and have linked to the right, got some connections made, but we don't have anything to bring forward with regards to budget. Again, I was at that same renewable energy conference, and it really felt like if we could do some work to help with permit pulling and inspections with regards to solar installs, it really felt like there was a lot of interest in that. But with regards to the money that we have, no, I have nothing to put forward for that.
If we could, so this isn't just towards you, Tammy, is in general. So by next month, what we really should be doing is looking at the list that we have and starting to prioritize which ones we think we should do in, say, the first half of next year. So between now and that meeting, if you do come up with anything else from your committees, please send them on to Nina so we can add them in. Because I think these last 2 months, we really need to start narrowing down, okay, yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that. This is actually how we're going to use the money. Perfect. Sounds good. Anyone else besides me who has something to report from a committee?
Yeah, I actually have an update from Green Space.
Okay.
We had a lot of different projects that we were throwing around, but there has been a lot of backing for looking at Johnson County's Contain the Rain program, which is a rebate for native plants and installing rain gardens, and sort of using that as a basis to form our own program for drought resistant native plants, as well as trees. So sort of combining the tree rebate plan or proposal into this and making it sort of all encompassing. We are still looking at some of the details, but it seems like, you know, especially with all this conversation about water rates increasing and pre-drought status, that there's a lot of concern for people as far as water usage. So if we can encourage people to switch their lawns to something like buffalo grass, or add some plants that are, you know, native and pollinator plants, but are also drought resistant, then this might be a good opportunity to do that. And so I wrote up some of the details. You know, we're still trying to figure out exactly how this would operate, but we did make a contact at Johnson County to chat with them and get a little bit of knowledge on their experience implementing this. And so this would likely entail working with the master gardeners as well to put together some resources, a list of approved plants and trees that would do well here. And then on the logistics side, putting together, you know, an application form and information and website. We went back and forth on the budget. We thought maybe asking for 20,000, realizing that is very high. But because there's not any big purchases that are needed in this, we are very, very flexible with that. And so that's not, we don't need 20,000 necessarily, and can, you know, make sure there is ample room for other projects. But that's about as far as we've gotten. We'll be trying to meet with Johnson County in the next month here and fleshing out that project proposal a little bit more.
Nina, part of the discussions that we've had in our subcommittee was that a $20,000 ask is not bad. Because 10,000, we're not going to have a lot of impact a lot of times, depending on what we try to do. That's a very small amount of money. We realize we're trying to make, you know.
I think we were just trying to be mindful that there might be other priorities, and we wanted to make sure that, you know, there was enough to go around, essentially.
Right. I'm just saying, we don't have to limit it to 10,000. I don't think, because I think that there's going to be a lot of impact lost if we try to do that.
And it could be that instead of kind of like we talked about last month, you know, 4 $10,000 projects, maybe we pick 2 $20,000 projects, you know, and save some budget for some marketing. And then, you know, I'm looking kind of rereading the notes that Paul sent for the project we'd like to do out of economic development. And there really doesn't seem to be an initial amount of money that we would need in the first half of the year. So maybe we wait and ask for money going into the latter part of the year, right, for our project.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's part of, is once we get these ideas down on paper and then, again, in the next meeting, kind of sift through, okay, this is what we've got. Here's the budget we're aiming for. What are we actually going to approve for the first half of the year?
Mhm. I also just wanted to clarify, this is the same project that I think Tammy was talking about as well. Because I know Paul has talked to both economic development and energy efficiency. So I just wanted to make that clear that I'm pretty sure this is the same project, the energy disclosure, right? So we're not doubling up funds. But
I think so.
okay. Not that there's a lot, like you said, there's not a lot of initial cost, but just so we are aware.
Yeah.
We just have to remember that we do have to spend it all.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it'll be
that's the
good
thing.
to,
I mean, we definitely want to spend it all, but I do think that if we spend too much of it too fast and then we don't have anything left for the latter part of the year next year, that's not good either. So finding that balance is going to be fun to strike.
I think
So, I
Elizabeth,
mean, we could always do 60-40 too if we were 40-60, and it just depends on what we decide is going to make the most sense.
yeah,
But
I think Elizabeth wanted to add something.
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Elizabeth. Yep.
I had a thought that I thought I would bring up here, if you don't mind. The neighbors around the McLean property that we succeeded in saving from development, at least now, and maintaining a little bit more than 50 mature trees. I don't know how many of them would be in the list that Deborah mentioned earlier, but those are really beautiful old trees. And one of the things that the neighbor group, we feel like everything is very positive right now. We definitely want to take yes for an answer from the city. But we are looking at the possibility of having somewhat of a park tree education program next spring. There would be one of the wish list for that as a park area would be for water to be available for fountains or just water availability. And the consideration was that it probably would not be too difficult since that area was formerly part of, it had houses on it, and I'm sure that, the plumbing probably is not too elaborate and would not be too difficult. But we don't have a big list of amenities that are interested now, but we are looking at doing sort of a park, open space, green space education project next spring. One of the things that I did was using a handy on my phone app, identified all of the different tree species that were in there, and there were about 22 separate species, I guess because all of those trees at one time were in people's backyards or front yards, and they were planted willy-nilly. And it's I think it makes for an extremely interesting, almost arboretum-like feel. And we're looking at the possibility of finding some way to identify the different species of trees and get the people that use the park and other people in the city to come to an event and learn about the trees. There's an enormous variety. Really surprised me. Everything from Siberian elm, which we have all over the city and which is, not done real well this year because of the elm leaf beetles, but also Persian silk tree, ginkgo, just lots of different types of trees, and using that as an education process. I don't have a dollar on that amount on that. We've got some raw material that we're looking at exploring, and what we wanted to do was have the name of the tree, the Latin name of the species, And then a note about it, where it does well, where it doesn't do well, just something that's how long it's been in the United States, whether it was imported from Europe or the Orient or something like that. Just something kind of to introduce them to the trees, basically. Just thought I'd mention that. I don't know that there's any sort of ask but there might be room for collaboration at some point. And thank you.
Well, Elizabeth, one of the things that I wanted to do with Sierra Club is ask you to take us on a tour of that in the spring. So
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, we may already be planning to do something like that.
That sounds marvelous. We might even possibly be able to work it in with the new St. Patrick's Day parade. That's kind of early. And
I saw that. Yeah.
we're
I
thinking
know.
about it.
Okay. I need to go by there and figure out where it is exactly. So
Fern to vine.
I know you're saying that, but I don't live over that way, so I don't know where those are. So I'm going to have to go out there and see. But okay. So anyway, Laura, back to you.
Back to me. Okay. All right. So maybe the last project. So Paul Obermite from the economic development team has brought an idea to us that we've agreed that we would like to move forward and bring to the full committee. So he really wants us to focus in looking at business performance standards in Wichita, both as an economic competitiveness concept to try to, kind of help with some of the financial matters for our business and whatnot here in town, but also, of course, to really fight and reduce carbon emissions coming from buildings. So what we decided is we would like to look at two buildings, one that's a city-owned building and one that's a private building, ideally. Also, both of which would be in the urban core, and start with just a study of where they're at now. So, for instance, we could look at personally on the city side, I would love to do City Hall as an example, right? A very emblematic building, people know it. So looking at that, and so how is the building measuring now versus, and then later in future stages, looking at how could we improve upon that down the road. So we have a couple ideas on some of the private side too, but I won't name any names because, obviously we don't have their commitment at this point. But in any case, so that would be the initial idea would be to look at those two buildings, see where they're at. And that would happen in the first half of 2023 with the idea we would take that information and provide recommendations that we would need to work with a consultant on, but provide those recommendations on how they could improve going into either the latter part of 2023 or probably more realistically 2024. Where we have some more funds, hopefully by then, to help with actually either maybe supplementing some of that renovation or covering some level of cost that we would be able to do from our group. I'm really paraphrasing everything that Paul wrote, and I can send it to the whole group so you can see more of the details of it. But that's the general idea of what we would like to propose coming out. So there'd be probably some level of funds needed to be able to do the initial assessment. We don't have any numbers down on that, but will by the time we meet in November. And then we would see from there. So I will leave it at that and let people ask questions. You're on mute, Lori.
Oh. Yeah, please do send that. I'm really curious.
Okay. Yeah, I'll forward the whole phase plan. But so this plan, like I mentioned, it would happen over the course of probably more like 2 years by the time we'd be able to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's okay because that way we're not taking too much budget now from other projects that can be done more immediately, but still get the process rolling.
I hope we do have some immediate projects.
No, I'm saying we do have some immediate projects that we can utilize more. I'm talking about this particular one that would take 2 years versus the ones that can be done faster, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking some of the things that, like the compost idea, is going to take a while to get that across the entire city. So it may not happen real fast. We can get it started pretty quickly in the first of the year. And if we can get a deal set up with Brooks Landfill to take the compost there, and figure out a way to help with the cost, that would be maybe a good place to start, so we don't have to start from scratch.
Yep. Sounds good. Anyone else have any kind of comments on this, very broad outline that I just said?
I'll just note that in talking with Paul, we had discussed throwing that information together in like a dashboard. And that from some of the options we looked at, that's pretty low cost, if not free.
Yep.
So yeah, not a huge initial cost to get started.
No, not for phase one. And that's what we'd aim for the first half of next year. And then depending on what what we find, then that'll kind of give us a better idea of what the cost would be going forward.
Nina, is there a way to get us up on the city website to have a more direct way for people to look at what we're doing and see how to join Zoom? You kind of have to go a little ways down the page to find it right now.
Yeah,
You were going to do that.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how the website is for a lot of pages right now. And I know that's on the slate to be redone in the next year. But yes, it is on my list to kind of revamp our page right now. So I will add some of this information as far as some of the things we're doing. I can also talk to our comms team to maybe do a post just talking about some of the stuff we're doing, just sort of as a lead in to other things down the line. We haven't done a whole lot of sustainability posting lately. There's been a lot of other stuff going on, but we can definitely get that started, at least get some conversation going, direct people to that page to get some resources, that Facebook page, but then also direct the website. That's my winter project, is working on that page.
Okay.
So sounds like a good winter project.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And then I'll just note for the marketing committee as well. I mean, I think this kind of goes to what we talked about last week, and Lori, yours is an example, right? Once we know what the projects are going to be, then we can start creating some ideas around how are we best going to market these ideas in a way that's both going to be cost effective and effective. So I think that committee is going to get a lot more active again once we actually know what projects we're going to do and how we want to proceed with a PSA type of marketing plan.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. And if we can take advantage of all the channels that the city already possesses, like the Facebook, the Twitter, the TikTok, or whatever they have, because I don't even know.
Yep. The ability to have free radio time, all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's anything else like that, Nina, that, the city gets a certain amount of billboards a year or whatever, right? I mean, whatever the marketing opportunities there might be, or even reduced pricing that we might be able to get because we're part of the city. Anything like that we can be aware of would be helpful when we're creating more of the budget around how we're going to put these ideas and marketing plans out there.
Yeah, I will. I'll touch base with our communications team. To my knowledge, the radio thing was the only thing. And I know paid advertising is not cheap. Just to keep that in mind. But I think we can still have a pretty good reach with free sort of social posts, and if we're partnering with other organizations,
free,
using them to spread the word as well.
I think Elizabeth put this in the chat earlier, but even so, you have the free social media side, and then the one area that's not as expensive as other media, and it has a pretty good impact, is doing some paid ads via social media.
Boosting, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a lot cheaper than trying to buy a TV ad. So
yeah, I probably would not recommend that.
No, I wouldn't recommend it either. But I'm just saying, in terms of the bang for your buck, in terms of reaching a lot of people, social media probably is the best. And you're going to reach all
Right.
demographics that way too, utilizing different media platforms.
And I think like boosted Facebook posts are going to be a lot cheaper than like
Yes.
Google ads as well, because those
completely.
aren't cheap either.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
And you can,
I don't think Google
them,
ads
too.
actually is a good one for this anyway, because you're not really. Yeah, I would go social media all day long over Google ads for what we're trying to do, because we're not a business for trying to, get people to click on our link to buy something. We want them to see the graphic.
Also, the city
Anyway.
has a TV station. I think it's channel
7.
7. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. If we go back to the PSA thing, they'll run it too.
They will. Nobody
Yeah.
watches Channel 7, but they could run it.
But you'd be surprised how many people do watch it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to take your word for it.
Whoever
And-
does, we can reach
So,
them.
yeah.
And we do have like a videographer. So if we want to make some really corny, cheap videos,
Yeah.
that's an option.
No, but
Sometimes
those
those could
get
be
more shares.
effective.
I mean, those are more fun. So I
Yeah.
like that idea. We just have to find somebody who's more photogenic than I am to be in them.
Oh, yeah, but we'll figure all of that out. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that we can get the message out in a fairly cost-effective manner. So, but like I said, speaking for the marketing team, I think we're kind of waiting to see at this point what projects we're going to do, and then we'll create plans around how best to get that out to the public. Sounds good. Well, we're at 7:42. So with these last 3-ish minutes, any last comments, ideas, really fast projects we haven't discussed that someone wants to share?
I'll
Okay.
just say that, there's a lot on this list that may not be high cost, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not worth pursuing as well alongside some of our bigger projects. So
Agreed.
I think there's a lot that can still be done while we're implementing these other programs, and that might be something we want to think about as we move forward.
Perfect. And maybe what we do, Nina, in terms, I need to relook at the spreadsheet again, but we can next time have a column that really prioritizes. And to your point, ones that aren't going to cost money doesn't, we can still prioritize those in order of how we'd like to do them, even with the ones that cost money. As long as we're also looking at what the budget's going to look like that first half of the year.
Yeah, and I'll try and highlight some of the things that came up tonight as projects we're going to pursue before I resend this out to the group. And then feel free to add anything. Obviously, this is a work in progress and is a living document, so there's a lot still to be determined.
Yes, absolutely.
So the
Sounds
idea
good.
is to have these all put together by the end of the year so they can go to the city council and get approved right away.
I don't think they have to go to city council, right?
I am not sure. That hasn't been entirely clear, but I would just say prepare for the possibility that it may need to go through the council process.
Okay, that's kind of what I had understood, but that just came from what I've heard here. So I
Right,
don't know.
right. Yeah, we might get lucky and, they're just like, okay, this is fine, but we don't know just yet. So
Okay,
if the city manager decides this should go to council, that's a 4 to 5 week process before we can start spending. So just keep that in mind.
so do we all need to call Bob and tell him, dude, can we just get this to go?
Pretty much. In theory. Sounds good. All right, everyone. Well, I think we'll call it a night tonight. So I'm going to call this meeting adjourned at this point, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone again in